So the newest season of Total Drama Island just came out this month. Well, sorta. It released in Italy, then everyone watched it in equal parts excitement and fear to not be spoiled. And there's a lot of interesting aspects to this season I'd like to share with you. This season had some really great character moments, and some not so great, questionable moments that made me pause and just take a minute for myself. This video will obviously have spoilers for the Total Drama Island 2023 season, as well as some references to past seasons, so consider this video spoiler territory for any Total Drama Island released material, including 2023 if you consider this released or not. Anyways, whether you've seen the season and want to hear my thoughts on it, or if you want to know the summary of the season through this video, I got you covered, so stick around. Let's start with the cast of the show that we're introduced to in the first episode. They didn't make the biggest first impression on me, their designs don't stand out very much, and I think they don't have too many unique traits from previous contestants. Such as this gal Axel, who's a zombie survivalist, when we've already had a zombie survivalist character before. The characters in this season have some of my favorite interactions though. I feel they're very personal compared to previous season, but let's do a brief rundown on who's who. We have a couple hockey bros, Wayne and Raj. While not terribly fond of characters that are twins or duplicates or clones, they're actually pretty great. Their dialogue is surprisingly funny, and they have this unexplainable charm that makes even the stupid moments funny. As I mentioned before, Axel is like one of those people that say they'd be really good in a zombie apocalypse, but like we already had a paranoid zombie survivalist in a previous season, Sean, and we even see a reference to him in her character intro when she hits the cardboard cutout of him. So like, at least they acknowledge it, but I also would have appreciated a different character idea more. Millie is one of the more divisive characters of the season. She's basically entering as a journalist who's writing a book on how stupid her generation is, so she basically just enters to do research. Sometimes she talks and I just say, who is this joke for? But in a way, it's sort of meta when you think that maybe the joke is for people like me that are part of the generation that watched the original Total Drama 15 years ago. I don't want to think about how that was 15 years ago. Priya is a character with an interesting backstory. She's been raised to be the ultimate Total Drama contestant, forced to train up to her parents' expectations. I see this character premise and think to myself, it's a cool concept, but it seems like someone to eliminate early because of how obviously strong they are. Also, another kind of cooler meta reference, like her parents watched the original show back then and then gave birth to her and trained her to be a star in the show. Maybe I'm looking into it too far though, I don't know. The next character is referred to throughout the season as Scary Girl, and I wish she didn't have an actual name. It'd be really funny if her birth name was Scary Girl. Whenever she's on screen, I wince a little bit because all her lines are like this.
If the shark ate Damien, he would scream a lot. I like that. But then Damien would never scream again. I don't like that. So I saved him.
But hey, scary girls are very popular in media. Think of like the Hex Maniac from Pokemon and how popular she is. Or even someone like Mirai Nikki Girl. MK is one of my favorite characters of the season. She's pretty chill and sarcastic, but also does a lot of scheming. She reveals she's a pickpocket in her character trailer, and she's pretty popular among fans. I think she's genuinely one of the funnier, more unique characters of the season, and a lot of people vibe on her sarcasm. Next up is Chase, who runs an internet prank show and is showing up to the island after his girlfriend broke up with him because of a prank he pulled on her. We don't know what the prank is yet, but Chase says his girlfriend had overreacted to whatever it was he pulled on her. Up next we have Emma, who was a former member of an internet prank show until her boyfriend Chase pulled a prank on her that caused her to break up with him. I think this is a hilarious reveal and a really funny concept for two of the characters of the show. Bowie is the first openly gay character, which is really cool to see from Total Drama. I kinda wish his character intro was a little more subtle in a way, cause he has some really cool lines. Like, he says he was elected prom king and prom queen in the same year, which I love, and it's really funny and clever, and tells us what we need to know about Bowie. When he says he'd be the first openly gay contestant, part of me feels like a little how do you do, fellow gays? But at the same time, I actually think it's better they directly acknowledge it, so there's no ambiguity about it. He's one of the funniest and strongest contestants I feel we've seen on the show, and is probably my favorite character this season, as we'll see throughout these episodes. Damien isn't really familiar with what Total Drama is. He's like a college student whose friends tell him to sign up for the show. Also, I think the first thing I even saw from this season was Toonrific Tariq saying this character stole his design. He's just a nice, smart guy who's also a bit nervous and the voice of reason. A nice, enjoyable character. Nichelle is a popular movie actress who the other contestants are all really big fans of, so it's pretty cool to have her around. Julia is a yoga, crystal influencer gal, and it's kind of like, how many characters are some sort of influencer so far? Maybe it's not accurate to call Nichelle an influencer if she's an actress, but it just seems half the cast is in some kind of social media sphere. Caleb is just pretty and muscular, which is fine. I mean, we've had characters like this in the past, like Justin, but Caleb also comes off kind of like an influencer, or at least has the qualities to be one. And last we have Z. He's the chill, quote-unquote stoner type. He's pretty funny. He reminds me a lot of Jude from 16, and I wonder if he was going to be voiced by Jude's voice actor, Christian Potenza, before he got removed from the show. Speaking of Christian Potenza, he's not voicing Chris McClane this season, which shocked a lot of people. Here's his old voice.
Looks like the Screaming Gaffers still have a chance. Will DJ step up to the plate and save the day?
And here's his new voice.
Remember the legal blah blah contract you signed? There was that bit about no phones on the island.
The voice actor that played the host of the previous seasons actually voices Chris this season now, and it seems to be more of a last-minute switch due to controversies Christian Potenza is currently in. Personally, I'd actually rather have Chris with a different voice like we see here, rather than seeing the other host. I think the other guy was just kind of bland discount Chris, and honestly, as jarring as the voice change is, I personally got used to it throughout the season. Also, I vaguely remember Chris McClane getting arrested in a later Total Drama season for dumping toxic waste on the island, so I was thinking throughout the season maybe this guy is just pretending to be Chris and that's why he has a different voice actor, and they'll have a big plot twist where he reveals he wasn't Chris this whole time. Spoilers, that doesn't happen, but it would have been cool. Like, why didn't they ever follow up on that plotline of Chris getting arrested? Unless I just missed it, did we ever see Chris resolve him getting arrested? Can you let me know if Chris ever, fessed up to his crimes or did his time? So overall, the designs and backstories aren't too crazy, but we'll see these characters develop and interact and share a lot more personal bonds, maybe more than any other season of Total Drama so far. Oh my god, I forgot Ripper. I hate Ripper. He's just Owen, but grosser and meaner. That's all you need to know. I guess he has some funny lines, but his cons outweigh his pros for sure. Before we talk about the first challenge, we should talk about the theme song.
Hey, what's up? I'm here to slay.
You know what? Never mind. We're not listening to the rest. Every time it opens with, hey, what's up? I'm here to slay, I just think, oh hi, Meghan Trainor. I hope next season's opening lyric is, hey, what's up? I'm here to mother. So I'm gonna try my best to move through these episodes as efficiently as possible, stopping for funny and significant moments. There's 13 episodes in total, so let's get started. I've put timestamps on the video for when every episode begins and ends that I discuss, and liking and subscribing really helps. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the summer. So after all the characters are introduced in the first half of episode 1, we see Julia, the nature healing crystal girl, gets her phone taken away since there's no phones allowed on the island. Chris throws them into the lake, which gets us a really concerning line from Wayne, the hockey bro.
Slake. That move was so cold you could hang ball caps on my nipples.
I paused the video right when I heard that. It scared me. Is that line really weird, or is it just me? Genuinely, I'm curious to know what you think. Meanwhile, we see Bowie and Emma, the ex-girlfriend, become friends, and she gets to complain to her new gay best friend about her ex. They're like Buzz Lightyear and Jesse and that meme that says, he did it again, huh? The challenge for the first episode is some kind of blindfolded race where the teams have to run through an obstacle course full of murder hornets and lava while their teammates try to guide them. During the challenge, Emma and Chase argue because Chase thinks Emma is trying to help him, which she replies she'd never help Chase because they've broken up. It's revealed the reason they broke up is because Chase cut the brakes to Emma's car and she crashed into a pet store.
You cut the brakes on my car!
Straight couples are messed up.
Anyways, the Ferocious Trout team wins the challenge because Wayne and Nichelle kind of crash into stuff a lot and don't do too well. So a member of this team has to go home, and I put a prediction down for every episode of the show. If you have predictions for each episode, or if you are seeing these challenges for the first time here, feel free to let me know in the comments what your predictions were for each episode. I'd love to see them. My prediction for this episode was a hockey guy is gonna go home, and that's why there's two of them, so one could be filler to eliminate to show how the game works. I thought the odds of this were even more likely when the two hockey guys revealed they voted for each other in the elimination, because they're kind of stupid and don't understand that voting for each other is a bad thing here. But the last person to go home here is between Emma, the angry ex-girlfriend who argued with her ex during the challenge instead of helping her team, and Caleb, the pretty guy that helped give advice to the team that everyone liked and listened to. And in a surprising twist of fate, Caleb gets voted off. It's a good twist, because especially in the moment, I think to myself, okay, Emma lost the challenge for her team, the mystery for why she and Chase broke up has finally been revealed because he cut her brakes. You almost feel like she could go home now and not much would be lost. We know all that needs to be known. But Caleb being eliminated is an interesting twist, especially when it's revealed Bowie got everyone to vote off Caleb because he's too smart and handsome and strong, and would be too much of a threat later on. So right away, we know Bowie is gaming the system, and that's pretty cool. So that was the first episode. We got character introductions, a little challenge, and a fun elimination plot twist. We got 12 more episodes to run through, so let's move on to episode 2. Episode 2. Ripper calls Millie a nerd for writing in her journal, and then he starts farting and counting. No one knows why he's counting, but he reveals this.
The under-18 record holder for the longest fart is a kid named Bucky Windhorn. He's the one who fired off that 48-second stink torpedo heard around the world.
Is that a real thing, or are you just...
Let him talk.
My personal best is 47 seconds. I know I can beat it. It's my life's ambition. So now, whenever I fart, I count steamboats.
Why, oh god, why does it have to be the U18 world record for holding the longest fart? Why specify this is the farting record for minors? And no, it's not me with the dirty mind. The burden of proof is on Total Drama to prove they're not twisted, considering how they've portrayed farts in the Total Drama Babies show from a few years ago. I don't know if I should show that clip or not. Axel, the survivalist, has skewers of meat for everyone. When asked what's on the mystery meat, she tells them it's dead. When they ask what it was before it was dead, she tells them it was alive. It's one of my favorite jokes in the season, I just wanted to share that. MK finds a way to hack the confessional booth by ripping out some cords and using one of Julia's phones she smuggled on, so MK's gonna be able to see everyone's confessions moving forward. I think that's a really interesting plotline, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that leads to throughout this season. The challenge is some Sea of Thieves pirate ship fight challenge where the teams shoot cabbage cannonballs at each other to try to wreck each other's ships. Axel kicks Ripper off the ship right away because he wanted to be captain instead of her, and she won't accept mutiny. Emma and Bowie seem to keep missing their shots, but it's revealed they're aiming high because they're targeting Chase instead of the boat. This gives the team the strategy to start firing at all the people, then they can easily take out the unmanned ship. During this attack, we see Scary Girl do an elaborate backflip, which tells me she's definitely not getting eliminated because she's had too much animation invested in her. I don't know how true it is, but people always mention how Ezekiel, the first contestant to get eliminated in the first season of Total Drama, had really stiff, limited animation, because why would they draw more animation poses for him if he's gonna get eliminated right away? So Scary Girl having more animation tells me she won't go home soon, I guess. The challenge ends when Z, the last member of the other boat, tries to wreck both the ships to force a stalemate, but he ducks away in fear at the last second, and the Trout end up winning. As Z is swimming back to shore, we watch his leg get bitten off by a shark, and while everyone thinks he's just in shock by the way he reacts, it's revealed he has a prosthetic leg. Axel asks him why he didn't tell them he has a prosthetic leg, but why the hell would anyone preface with that? Excuse me, one of my legs is prosthetic, but I hope you still enjoy the movie. Z is pretty funny, because he says he makes up stories for how he lost his leg, but in reality he was just born that way, and if they vote him out tonight, they'll miss out on his future stories of how he lost his leg. But one of these campers has to go home, so let's predict who's going home using my super paranoia multiple choice question deductions. Ahem. Chase has revealed what he did to make Emma mad, so logically he could be eliminated since he and Emma have fulfilled their story. Priya, the girl who's trained to be a contestant her whole life, could go home since she's kinda boring and basic and sucked at this challenge, despite training for it her whole life. However, Caleb went home last episode, and we can't have two boys eliminated right away, so it'll probably be between Priya or Axel, since Axel is very similar to Ripper, as we saw in this episode, and doesn't offer much of a unique angle. Axel, the survivalist, gets eliminated, thanks in part to kicking Ripper off the boat right away. She was okay though, she was kinda funny, but she wasn't very original of a character, so I'm totally fine with her being eliminated here.
When the zombie apocalypse happens, I'm not gonna help any of you!
Well, I'm scratching you off my Christmas card list! That's 2 contestants down, 13 to go. Who'll be next? I'm legally not allowed to tell you. So keep watching Total Drama
Weakest link.
Episode 3. This episode starts with everyone gushing about how Nichelle is a movie star and how they're big fans of her. Priya tells Millie about how she's been training her whole life for the competition and her parents put pressure on her to be the perfect contestant. However, she wants to go to med school, so she hopes if she wins, her parents will allow her to pursue her education. Priya tells Millie not to tell anyone about this, but Millie writes this down in her notes for the book she's making about how her generation is stupid and her time on Total Drama, even though Priya's parents aren't a part of her generation, ? Considering how meta this season is, it is reasonable Priya may have been born right around the time the very first Total Drama happened, so her parents could be the generation of some of the fans who first watched the original, like me. In the dining hall, Raj spills some of his food on Bowie and tries to clean it up very sensually. They kinda hint Raj might have a crush on Bowie or something, and I'm really curious how this will play out, if they'll do something with that, or if they'll just be really good friends. The challenge this episode is an obstacle course to get keys to unlock this chamber filling up with water each team has a member stuck in. This is like a game out of Saw, which I guess is pretty par for the course considering how sadistic Chris is. I'm never gonna understand how or when the confessionals take place in this show. Ripper dives and grabs a number here, face planting into a rock. We see the number stuck to his helmet here in the confessional, then he takes it off and puts the code into the water tube thing. So did he directly go to the confessional, then put the code in? Did they pause the game for him to do this? So as the challenge is winding down, Nichelle is the last member of her team to participate. She gets off to a slow start as she waits for someone to say action, and when they finally do, it's revealed she actually sucks and doesn't do any of her own stunts. The others try to comfort Nichelle so she can hurry up and win, except MK, who is pretty sarcastic and taunts Nichelle.
No, I don't. I'm so sorry. I lied. I don't really do any of my own stunts.
Look, Nichelle, it's my shocked face.
But the truth is, all the cool stuff I do on screen is actually being done by a 46-year-old stuntman in a braided wig named Jerry.
Why would you name a wig Jerry?
I think that's the stuntman's name.
Oh yeah. That makes way more sense.
Meanwhile, Scary Girl is starting to catch up. Hey, leave that bear alone! Nichelle kind of regains her confidence and has some self-actualization by the end, but it's too little, too late, and her team loses. I don't see how Nichelle doesn't get eliminated here. It seems like she's done so much now that they can get rid of her, but I guess MK could be eliminated for making fun of Nichelle while the others try to console her. MK is one of my favorites so far, so I hope she doesn't go home. So I'd have to lock in Nichelle goes home here. In the elimination ceremony, we see Nichelle gets eliminated, but she seems to leave the island with a bit of confidence and determination, which is sorta nice. In shows like this, it's nice to see those who don't get to win get to celebrate their own little victories and developments sometimes. Episode 4. The challenge is some kind of capture the flag like game, but with these two skulls. There's a jackhammer left on the course, and Scary Girl gets it and tries to kill people with it. Yeah. While she initially goes after MK, Scary Girl's teammate Damien tells Scary Girl he can't find MK and they should try to chase someone else. Scary Girl then proceeds to chase Damien with the jackhammer. As she's already mentioned previously, she loves the way Damien screams, even debating whether she should save him or not during the pirate ship challenge. This is the least interesting challenge so far. This game doesn't have a very clear flow or progression, it all feels just like random stuff going on. Bowie falls on Raj, and Raj says he likes Bowie in the confessional, but what's really funny is Wayne then goes in the confessional and is like, oh my god, my friend Raj is gay, when is he gonna tell me? It's funny that he's just the really supportive dude bro, almost overly supportive, as a lot of Wayne's dialogue after this point is speculating when Raj will come out to him, which is a fun twist. The only other significant thing that happens really is Ripper uses Priya as a human shield, and it's kind of brutal, like she gets hit by a boulder, I think her leg is broken here. The skull falls in front of Scary Girl just as she's about to murder Damien, and instead of bringing the skull to Chris, she goes to give the skull a makeover, and they lose. Priya still has the plunger stuck to her face from when Ripper used her as a human shield, and she takes it off and oh my god, she looks terrifying. So the losing team has an interesting dilemma. Do they vote off Ripper, who despite being a jerk, almost won the challenge for the team, or Scary Girl, who really deliberately lost the challenge for the team? There's also Damien, who understandably hates Total Drama now, and wants everyone to vote him off the island. I'd rather have Steve's pretty early in. Because of how Ripper hurt Priya, Millie, and Scary Girl say they'll vote out Ripper, which should be enough for him to go home. But in some kind of surprise twist, Scary Girl gets eliminated. She curses everyone before she leaves, which Chris says is better than he expected that to go. But Priya's confused how Scary Girl got voted out when there should have been a majority vote against Ripper. There's no vote tampering or anything, but it turns out Millie secretly voted for Scary Girl because she fears her more than she fears or is annoyed by Ripper on behalf of Priya. So this is kind of a good early example of Millie not exactly being supportive to Priya. Ripper gets a marshmallow and quote-unquote roasts it, then eats it, and this is arguably the most disgusting sequence I've ever seen to be animated ever. This clip is not safe for life. Let's just move on. Episode 5. I really don't want to talk about this episode. One of the only things I know about this season before watching it is just the excessive amount of farting, and someone claimed it's the first time we see female farts on screen in the series. I'm not checking or verifying this. I'm not gonna show it on screen either. I really hate this. Who is it for? Damien runs a campaign to get himself voted off the island, but Priya is still set on getting Ripper off the island. At the dining hall, breakfast is baked beans. There's a really funny moment where Wayne tries to get Julia's portion.
Hey Julia, looking good today.
Thanks, one of the hockey guys. But it's what's inside that counts.
And the delivery of this just makes me crack up every time. She says this like it's his actual name. Everyone eats a bunch of beans for breakfast, and this is a deliberate decision by Chris because this is a Jurassic Park challenge where there's raptors on the island. Raj asks if he means the basketball team, which I think is pretty funny because the hockey guys think everything is a sports reference, like Sharks are the San Jose Sharks hockey team, or Raptors are the Toronto Raptors basketball team, and I gotta give bonus points because the hockey guys are especially Canadian, just like the Toronto Raptors. Okay, I'm gonna show like one fart on screen because they had the potential to make an actually funny fart joke. Chase is trying to clench his butt shut so he doesn't fart and alert the Raptors, and he actually manages to do this eventually, but I think they could have made a funny fart joke if they committed just a little further and he like burped out the fart or something. Yes, it would be crass and gross, but hey, it would be a fart joke that isn't really borderline perverted, like Ripper flirting with Emma because she farted.
More there, Emma. More than just a pretty face.
Ew! Are you flirting with me about my farts?
Yes, I am.
And I hate this pose she does. It's like, bad people are going to find this episode. Not me. I had to take a break from this episode. It did so much mental damage to me. Z gets stuck on a rock as he's being chased by a raptor, and Chase leaves him behind. Fortunately, Z can remove his prosthetic leg and saves himself from the raptor. Damien, Ripper, and some others are stuck in the kitchen, and Ripper finally achieves his goal of tying the world record for the longest fart. I don't know if there's any particular reason he specifically ties it and doesn't beat it, but I don't want to think about it any longer. When he accomplished this, I thought to myself, yay, he's achieved his goal, he can finally go home. However, his fart alerts a raptor and they shove beans down the raptor's throat right next to an open flame, and the fart explodes the kitchen.
This. Now run!
A raptor approaches Julia, and this is a really funny cut to a confessional.
I'm so glad I skipped the beans this morning. Oh, crud. No, not today. Mouthwash! Ever heard of it?
While this is really funny, it still leads me to my question of, did she immediately go to the confessional booth right after the raptor roared at her? When did these events happen? Anyways, Julia brutally disses the raptor, talking about his dry skin and bad teeth, and we see how the raptor reacts to this, and it's so sad. What the hell? MK records the real Julia being mean to the raptor and uploads it online. Julia sees she's losing a bunch of followers because of this and gets angry, so we might just see a whole new side to Julia now that her real self has been exposed. I try to think who would be going home. They did say I had to predict Damien's going home because he tried to get everyone to vote him out, but now he's done something heroic by getting past the raptor, so he's gonna be like, no, I want to live, but he'll get voted out in a cruel, ironic twist. Damien does indeed go home, which is a shame, but I understand. I hope Ripper goes home soon, please. It's kind of funny that everyone voted Damien off as a thank you to him for saving their lives. Like, they want to get rid of Ripper, but they love Damien more than they hate Ripper. That's really saying something. Episode 6. This episode starts with an enraged Julia as she's fully entered her Heather arc. She's relieved people saw the real her, and she's finally free from pretending to like yoga and avocado toast. This episode is pretty much just flinging each other into targets, but it's surprisingly fun and chill. The contestants have fun. There's funny jokes and gags throughout the episode. I have no issues with this episode. It's probably the best we have so far. Wayne gets shot into a penalty area, which is in a pit with a bull, and Raj gets shot into a shark-infested pool of tapioca. Bowie goes to save them, and Raj kisses Bowie. It's a bit surprising to see on screen, but yeah, Total Drama has its first gay kiss, which is interesting to see after all this time. I think there's been plenty of characters that have been kind of hinted or joked about to be gay or at a minimum bi, so after 15 years, it makes total sense. Wayne is really happy to see this and wants Raj to tell him so they can celebrate, but Raj skirts around this whenever they talk. The funniest gag of this episode is when they shoot Z at a big target where 10,000 points, that's 10,000 feet away, and as he's flying through the air, he's got to release weight, so he drops his soda can, then his prosthetic leg, and begins floating up in the sky.
Dude, we're falling right out of the sky! We gotta drop the load!
We get this psychedelic ending sequence with Z landing in the target and winning for his team, and Julia's team ends up losing. If I had to guess, I think Wayne is gonna get voted off. I'd hate that, but I don't think it's gonna be Julia now that she's just entered her Heather heel arc of the show. Honestly, it's probably gonna be MK because the dude bros still have to finish their plotline of coming out to the other, and Emma still has to resolve her issue with Chase, so it's probably MK's time to go. I'm locking this in as MK goes. At the campfire, everyone seems to be leaning towards eliminating Julia, but she tells everyone that MK has been watching everyone's confessionals and stealing stuff from them to sell online, and MK gets voted off. I'm so good at this game. I'll miss MK, she was really fun and sarcastic, but I think she doesn't really have anything left to do or prove, so it's fine. She's definitely a top 5 character this season for me though, if not higher, and she will be missed. Episode 7. This episode starts with Priya and Millie training as usual, and it's revealed that there's no more teams, but rather a free-for-all, so now people will start to make alliances, and only the person that comes in first in each challenge gains immunity from voting off. The challenge in this episode is getting cassowary eggs. They show how strong and dangerous cassowaries are, and oh my god, they show a bear sliced in half, what the hell? Raj and Bowie say they should be prepared to vote each other off and stuff, so they should pause whatever it is they got going on, but go on a date once the competition's over. There's a lot of alliances and important character interactions this episode, so I'm gonna go over them kinda quickly. Wayne is still upset Raj won't tell him he's gay, and it's a little odd on Wayne's part. Like, I feel like they could have incorporated Wayne being too obsessed with his friend's relationship or sexuality, but regardless, it's nice to see their friendship and Wayne's openness, especially with him, you know, being a jock. Wayne and Raj are falling off a cliff after they get beat up by the cassowary, and Raj does eventually tell him he's gay, which is pretty cool. Julia makes an alliance with Chase as fellow influencers, and Julia has a plan to get Chase back with Emma. So Bowie and Julia team up and leave Chase and Emma together, but Julia eventually betrays Bowie. Meanwhile, Chase and Emma are stuck in a cassowary cave hiding from the birds, and Chase drops a candy bar he was gonna give to Emma. He says sorry for dropping the candy bar, but Emma thinks he's apologizing for cutting the brakes to her car, which caused them to break up. So now Emma and Chase are back together. Priya and Millie team up, and Priya could have run away with an egg when the two of them split up, but Priya comes back and saves her friend. Ripper gets Z to dress like a cassowary so Ripper can steal the eggs, and Z's dance moves work a little too well. Z says he's gonna take the baby for a hike. Honestly, he should have said he was gonna go out for some milk and cigarettes like a good abandoning dad. His disguise fails and the cassowary is mad at him. Ripper shows up first with his egg, but spikes it like a football, as a psychopath would. Fortunately, the egg hatches in midair and a chick flies out, and Chris tells Ripper he doesn't win because he brought a bird and not an egg. Although that's a messed up loophole, there's been many more messed up loopholes or eliminations in the past, like Lashana's, never forget. But Ripper deserves this, like who the hell spikes a baby bird egg? Priya and Millie are the next two to finish, and this sequence is equal parts funny as it is infuriating.
You were the one who saved us and got us the eggs. It's for sure you who deserves to get immunity.
Oh, but you're my best friend, and I want you to have it.
Okay.
Millie wins immunity!
So I think the person to get voted out here will either be Chase or Wayne. Wayne getting voted out makes sense because he's fulfilled his character arc of proving his friendship with Raj, who just came out to him. And Chase could get voted out since he just made up with his girlfriend, which would also give Emma a vengeance arc against Julia possibly now that Chase is eliminated. Regardless, I'm voting Wayne will get eliminated tonight. Raj and Wayne show up to the elimination ceremony, crippled and concussed, and they're both taken away to a hospital. Chris says there's no elimination this episode, but the Hockey Bros get taken away, so I'm kinda unsure if this meant they would come back when they're healthy, or if they're both eliminated, but I'll just spoil and say they're both eliminated here, they don't come back. It was just kinda weird wording. Since this season is only 13 episodes, I guess they'd have to eliminate 2 campers at once eventually, and I mentioned at the beginning I'm not crazy about duplicate characters like twins and stuff, so them getting eliminated like one character is fine, though I will miss them. I think they were actually my favorite characters so far, besides Bowie maybe and MK. But like I've said, their character arc is kinda over. Z sees the cassowary mom he abandoned in the background, and we get the funniest part of this episode.
That was crazy! I gave that cassowary a fake phone number because she seemed a little obsessed, and I was worried she might...
Ripper has a confession right after, and am I to believe the Ripper's confession happened first, or did they repair the bathroom in between confessions? I'm sorry, I can't stop thinking about how these confessions work. Episode 8. Today's competition is a gross food challenge, and Priya says she ate gross food all the time for her training growing up, and it's like, girl, you were abused. Millie drops out right away, and Priya's upset again since they have an alliance, but Millie's saying she might as well not eat the stuff because immunity doesn't matter to her, since everyone else is more of a threat to get eliminated, which is a great point. I can't really fault Millie here. Chase and Emma have a falling out when she realizes Chase wasn't apologizing for cutting the brakes to her car before, and he doubles down that he shouldn't apologize since it was a funny prank. As a former couple, they know the words the other finds super gross, so they deliberately try to get the other to barf by saying things like banana pudding or whitening toothpaste. So I'm watching these campers eat poutine covered in maggots, and I'm like, what is the freaking point? It's so disgusting, it's not funny, it's just gross and hard to watch. If anyone watching thinks otherwise, I'd love your opinion, because for me, as an aspiring writer, it'd be great for me to understand understand how y'all feel about this episode where they just eat gross food. Granted, I hate gross out, I hate gore and excessive violence, so maybe I'm the outlier with these biases, which is totally fine. But Total Drama already had an episode that does this gross out food challenge well. At the end of the very first season, Gwen, Owen, and Heather were doing this same kind of challenge, and I thought it was a good episode because they showed how much they freaking hate Heather, that they worked together to get rid of her. And during the gross outs there showed their grit and stuff, but here seeing people just rainbow vomit on each other is just crass. Z drops out of the competition because he drinks milk and never knew where it came from before and is grossed out. Okay. Ripper and Julia are the final two left and eat everything put in front of them, showing Julia's determination to not get eliminated. And this is actually a nice sequence. It's actually doing the exact thing I think worked way back in the first season, and using the gross out as quick little gags and showing both of their determination. Julia's especially motivated because she's been so mean to everyone, she probably needs immunity or she'll get voted out. Ripper and Julia eat meal after meal, but now they get to their final one, and it's a 50-foot tapeworm. I'm done. I heard that and stopped the show again. A 50-foot tapeworm? What the hell? I resumed a few minutes later after reevaluating what decisions in my life led me to reviewing a show where they eat a 50-foot tapeworm, and the show immediately cuts to this.
Please, kids, do not do this. It's not worth it.
They're right to be disgusted. I haven't showered in days.
In retrospect, while editing this video, it's probably really hypocritical to say, but eating a 50-foot talking tapeworm is kinda funny. This episode has done a lot of psychic damage to me, but at least it's executing well. I can't think of a grosser food to eat than a 50-foot talking tapeworm, who on top of that hasn't showered in a few days. Julia and Ripper are on a collision course towards pulling a Lady in the Tramp, but with a tapeworm instead of spaghetti, but Julia is fortunately able to eat past the halfway point just in time to avoid kissing Ripper, and wins the challenge. I think this is Ripper's time to go. I can't see a character leaving besides Ripper here, like maybe Z, but when you consider they've finished that 48-second part to tie the world record, I don't see any reason to keep him around. Ripper finally gets eliminated here.
I'm leaving here a world record fart holder. So, you're not gonna see me crying. I'll wait till I get home.
Episode 9. This episode is a big race. The 7 campers left split into 2 alliances, both with 4 campers each. Clearly, you can't have 2 teams of 4 with 7 campers left, but Z is part of both alliances, which is pretty funny. Each side thinks Z is some mastermind who's secretly playing up the other side by helping them, but Z's just a bit out of it. Chase and Emma share a boat, and Chase hits a fish like a baseball that ends up breaking her boat, making her mad at him as usual. They get the bears. He plays dead so well that the bears start digging graves for Chase and Emma, which is a really funny twist. I suppose this has probably been done before, but it's a really funny follow-up to have this instead of the bears just going away. Before they can be buried alive, Z helps distract the bears, which confuses half of his alliance, but they chalk it up to just being part of his genius alliance and strategy to help the other team. Julia and Bowie fight for a while, and Z helps them both out of this honey pit. Bowie could have won immunity, but he angers Julia by saying most of her followers are just bots. She gets up and attacks him and wins immunity, so if I had to guess who's going home, I'd say it's probably Z, Emma, or Chase. But as usual, I'm gonna try to use the logic of Z doesn't really have a character arc, and Chase and Emma still need to resolve their relationship, so I have to lock in Z as my final answer. So at the elimination ceremony, it seems like Bowie was going to get eliminated, but Z stands up and tells everyone to vote Chris out as he's made an alliance with every camper against Chris. I don't understand how they could vote Chris out, but Z revealing he betrayed everyone's alliance makes him an easy target, and he gets voted off. While I don't think voting Chris off makes sense, I think it'd be really cool to have Chris participate in a season and just be extremely overpowered because he knows what every challenge is and probably cheats / has the script. Anyways, let's move on. Episode 10. This episode starts with Priya and Millie training as usual. Millie is a bit inconsiderate to Priya here, sort of unintentionally, as we've seen a few times so far. She drinks all the bottles of water she was carrying, while Priya was carrying a bag of rocks for their training. Millie then asks Priya for a piggyback ride down the mountain. It's pretty cool to see the big cliff top referenced here. We don't see it too often, but I think it's one of the most distinct features of the Total Drama Island, like how it was used in the very first challenge of the original show, with people diving off of it. Priya is tired and dehydrated, but doesn't get to rehydrate or anything because today's challenge is an endurance competition. They're standing on poles for as long as possible. I like challenges like this, and it seems pretty economic animation-wise too, really focusing on just dialogue and jokes, and it's just kinda chill. It's a nice change of pace, and it's definitely one of my favorite episodes this season. Chase bothers everyone to trade poles with him so he can have one closer to Emma so he can win her back, which gives me my prediction one of them is going home tonight, if not both. During the challenge, there's a heat advisory, and what the hell is this sun? This is nightmare fuel. Chris gives reward incentives for people to jump off their pole and lose the challenge, and Millie says she's probably gonna jump out at the next reward, which further annoys Priya, who's constantly annoyed at Millie's whining and lack of consideration for Priya as well as their alliance. So we know Priya's gonna snap at Millie eventually, but the question I have is who will resolve the relationship this episode? Emma and Chase, or Priya and Millie? I still think it's gonna be Chase and Emma though. Priya uses this opportunity to get to know Millie more. She insists Millie doesn't really try hard or want to win or anything, and asks why Millie's even here. Priya wants to read Millie's notebook, which we know Millie's keeping a secret because it's all about how stupid everyone is and includes confidential information like about Priya's family, who raised her to be the ultimate Total Drama contestant. Bowie sees the phone that MK downloaded all the confessionals to, washed up on the shore, and he debates risking it all to go get the phone. But when Bowie is shown in a confessional in which he debates throwing the challenge in order to get the phone, I'm just thinking, how did they do this? Is he reenacting his thought process, or like, did they take him off the pole to record that, then put him back on? Sometimes I feel like they incorporate the confessionals within the episode, like Julia with the messed up hair because the raptor roared at her, but I feel like they used to do some confessionals in older seasons where you'd see a character like Julia do an interview at the beginning of the episode with the messed up hair, and you'd wonder what happens in this episode to cause her to look all messed up like this. And I personally really like those because it catches you off guard and gives you a lot to speculate about what will happen. Like, to give a real example, I think it'd be really funny if when Raj and Wayne got attacked by the cassowary, their video confessionals throughout the episode, even before they get attacked, could have them bandaged up and concussed. It'd be unexpected, but you'd say to yourself, what the hell happened to them? And you'd want to find out. It's just kind of an unexpected funny twist, I think. There's actually a lot of funny jokes in this episode, most revolving around Chase insisting he's selfless for Emma.
Done a single selfless act in your life.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. What does selfless mean?
It's when you take a picture that you're not in.
The stories Chase recalls are pretty funny, such as putting a jacket over a puddle for her, but it turns out he used her jacket, and the puddle was his own pee, in a movie theater because he couldn't hold it while watching the movie. Or Chase got Emma's cat out of a tree, but it was by chopping the tree down, and the tree landed on Emma's mom, who now calls Emma Jeff. Maybe worst of all, Chase got Emma a star named after her, which seems sweet, but this was part of a two-part present, because the star isn't named Emma, it's named Chase's girlfriend. The second part of his gift to Emma was to have her legally change her name to Chase's girlfriend. I think some people would find that romantic, actually. Chris sets up some incentives for people to jump, like a lumberjack breakfast I've been thinking about for over a week. Chris even offers $10,000 for someone to jump, and like, I would jump for 10K. It's not like you automatically get voted off if you lose. That's a guaranteed 10K, come on. I respect their hustle though. Priya gets eliminated from the challenge due to her heat stroke and imagining a floating water bottle because of how dehydrated she is. Bowie eliminates himself to secretly get the phone with everyone's info MK had from before. The final incentive to jump off the pole is a pizza. Yeah, we went from $10,000 to a pizza. And Chase ends up eliminating everyone but Emma on his way to the pizza, causing Emma to be the winner. Emma thinks this is all for her and and considers Chase selfless again. Millie says she's going to cancel the book she was making because Priya's one of her only friends she's ever made. However, at the same time she says this, Bowie finds the confessionals of everything Millie said, where she calls Priya needy and emotionally stunted from her parents' pressure, while also revealing everything she's writing in the book. So if I had to guess going into tonight's elimination, I think Priya's gonna get eliminated, if not Millie. It's sweet they're each other's first real friends, but I feel Bowie's gonna reveal Millie's secret book. I guess I'll lock in that Millie's going home. Maybe Bowie will deflect himself getting voted off by pushing the focus to Millie. Oh, I'm so stupid. Obviously Chase is going home. He eliminated Millie and Julia, so they had a great reason to vote him off. And he resolved his character arc of Emma forgiving him, I guess. Can I really call this resolved? You know, I kind of forgot they resolved their relationship issues, since there's been multiple times he's been forgiven by her for reasons that aren't exactly to his credit, including here. You know they're just gonna be on and off forever. You just know. Episode 11. This episode starts with Millie and Priya being pretty chummy, showing off their friendship bracelets, but we know this will come to a crash soon when Bowie reveals Millie's book she was making. Julia tries to break up Bowie and Emma's alliance by telling Emma that Bowie voted Chase off last episode. Bowie doubles down and talks about how stupid and selfish Chase is, and Emma seeks to get Bowie eliminated to avenge her boyfriend. The challenge this episode is to take selfies with animals and pretty much just get beat up the whole episode. It's really not very interesting or funny. There is one scene of a bear jumping on Julia's head repeatedly, and it's like, am I crazy, or does this season have an exceptional amount of violence, especially towards the woman? Maybe it's just my imagination, because everyone gets pretty beat up this season, but like, it's so brutal. And now we got this Kung Fu Turtle beating Emma and Julia up. Julia wins immunity per usual at this point. Bowie is a big candidate to go home tonight due to Emma seeking to eliminate him for her vengeance, but I think he's gonna deflect his elimination by revealing Millie's secret book she's been making. So I'm locking in the prediction Millie goes home again. If not her, Emma will go home. She kinda is done with her character arc now that Chase is gone. I guess, unless she develops to not be naively in love with a selfish jerk like Chase and becomes a strong independent woman. So the final two to get eliminated is between Bowie and Emma gets eliminated. It makes sense considering she's kinda pointless to be here still now that Chase is gone, and I like how they justify her elimination. The cast debated voting off Emma because she had inadvertently flung and maybe killed the Kung Fu Turtle that was attacking her when she flung the branch. But it turns out the reason she actually got eliminated over Bowie is because she did really good in the challenge, and Bowie was so bad he didn't get a single point, and he's not seen as a threat. Which makes sense, but it's one bad challenge for him, and he's always been considered a frontrunner otherwise. But this is a satisfying enough reason for me. You know, as I mentioned, Emma doesn't really have a reason to stay here any longer. Looking at these final four contestants, I'm really interested to see how it'll go down, because I can't imagine Julia winning as sort of an openly evil Heather clone. I could see Bowie winning, but I kinda doubt it. He's too similar to the kinda suave guys who have won in the past, and if a gay guy wins the season, people are probably gonna scream that this show is woke or anti-woke or something. I don't know, the terms are so interchangeably meaningless. I think Millie is annoying, but I could see her winning, especially since everyone's like, wow, imagine you winning throughout the season. What I think would make sense is Millie's secret journal gets revealed, but her and Priya patch things up, and Millie maybe even sacrifices the win of the season to Priya for an act of selflessness, and that would ensure Priya can be free from her parents and go to med school, maybe. Part of me thinks it seems too obvious for Priya to win, as the girl who's trained for it her whole life. Maybe her character arc could end with her accepting that winning isn't everything and standing up to her parents, so I'm curious to see if it'll actually pan out this way. Episode 12. So like, looking at the last four left, Bowie has to make it through the finals. We already know. It can't be a girls only final, or they'd get angry comments for that. So the question is, does Bowie drop the journal truth bomb this episode or next? I think it's gotta be this episode, but it'll be interesting to see. Bowie, Millie, and Priya make an alliance where they'll ensure Julia gets eliminated. Bowie has the plan to pretend to be in an alliance with Julia, and he'll deliberately throw the challenge so Julia won't get immunity, and then then the three of them will vote Julia out. This challenge is probably the worst in the whole series. They just walk through a cave and try to grab the most coins. Despite Bowie's best, or rather his worst efforts, Julia is pretty unstoppable and grabs 286 coins. Millie and Priya are doing really poorly, and they get trapped in this giant sea monster that's been eating all the coins. This scene kind of reminds me of Pinocchio. Maybe it's an allusion to it, since they escaped the whale in Pinocchio by lying and stuff and making his nose longer so they could get out. And you know, Millie is a liar to Priya, but they escape the whale by punching its uvula, so we know it's a girl whale. I think this whole episode is a bit dull, and even the scene with the whale could have used a little something. I don't know, there's just so little tension or emotion. Priya and Millie make it back to the surface with their sea monster full of coins, and Priya gains immunity. So yeah, Julia's obviously gonna go home. The elimination ceremony tries to build up the tension and possibility of Millie going home, because if Julia gets 2 votes and Millie gets 2 votes, Julia wins the tiebreaker because she's won immunity more times this season. But like, there's no reason why anyone besides Julia would vote for Millie. If they gave Bowie a reason to vote for Millie instead of Julia, or even the slightest reason to consider betraying his alliance, the scene would have so much more tension to me. But they kind of play it up for nothing, and Julia goes home. This is personally my least favorite episode in the series by far. There's little to no drama or tension or significant dialogue. However, at the end of the episode after Julia's elimination, Bowie begins his plan to win the finals by pitting Priya and Millie against each other. Bowie drops Millie's journal off for Priya to find, and he also rips out the last page of the journal in which Millie reveals she won't publish the book because Priya's her first friend. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the finale. Episode 13. So we finally made it to the last episode of the new season. Looking back at this episode a little more in hindsight, it's kind of difficult to think who would win between Priya or Millie. While I personally have eliminated Bowie as the possible winner, in part because a smug, arguably flamboyant guy has won before with Lightning. Wait, did Lightning win? Was that a season where half the world saw one winner and half the world saw the other? Hold on, let me look this up. Okay, so Lightning played in the finals of his season against this guy named Cameron, and I look up who won that season, and it says Cameron is a contestant on Total Drama Revenge of the Island. He was the winner on Total Drama Revenge of the Island, but in an alternate ending that only aired in the US and the Philippines, he was the runner-up to Lightning? What? Why the hell would they do that? Why only for the US and Philippines? Why do they want people to just be confused when discussing the show with each other? Like, what if you watched a basketball game and if you're watching in New York, the Knicks win, if you're in Los Angeles, the Lakers win? Where do we draw the line on this? Anyways, if I had to guess, I would say Priya will win. You can make an argument Millie could win, and it's really difficult to decide, but I'll get more into this later. Millie is distraught Priya found her journal, and Priya is enraged and refuses to talk to her. In order to get to the final 2 contestants, the first challenge has the 3 remaining campers teaming up with an eliminated camper in order to cut down a tree and race it as a raft through a lake. Priya gets teamed with Damien, Millie gets teamed with Ripper, and Bowie gets teamed with Julia, which is kinda hilarious. Julia's obviously upset that Bowie betrayed her last episode and makes a contract for her to receive half of the million if he wins, in exchange for her cooperation in this challenge. Bowie signs the contract but ends up ripping it up when she pushes further negotiations. To make matters worse, Bowie's saw breaks and he actually ends up cutting down the tree with just his tiny part of the saw through sheer grit and determination. Honestly, respect. Ripper tells Millie she should sabotage Priya's raft so Millie can save Priya and prove her friendship. The issue with this is the lake they're riding the rafts on is actually made of lava. Priya's gonna die. Priya's raft begins falling apart, but she'd rather risk her life than be saved by Millie. Also, Bowie just picks up a whole ass tree and throws it in the lava. Again, you cannot knock his hustle. Bowie manages to catch up while Priya's raft falls apart and she's fighting with Millie, and the 3 of them race towards the finish line. Although Millie is in the lead on her own raft and Bowie and Priya were fighting on Bowie's raft, Bowie and Priya pole vault their way to the finish line, eliminating Millie from the competition once and for all. Millie doesn't really care about being eliminated, but reaches out to Priya and asks her if she had read the last page of her book, with her confessions about how Priya is a good friend, and she won't be continuing the book now. Millie also reveals how she's insecure and doesn't really have friends, and it's easier to judge others. So throughout the show, all the times where she said her generation is stupid, and I ask who is this joke for, it all leads to this moment where Millie reveals that's just part of her insecurity. I think it works really well, and it's a solid character arc for Millie. Although she's eliminated, she's probably changed and developed more than any other camper this season, maybe even by a significant margin. Going into this episode, I thought a logical ending for this season could be Priya and Millie reconciling their friendship, which they do, and then maybe Priya realizes winning isn't everything, or she stands up to her kind of abusive, obsessed parents. I also thought the contract Bowie signed with Julia might be some kind of hint that Bowie will end up winning, and although I initially thought Bowie had no chance of winning, I thought he does have a chance here because he wouldn't be able to fully enjoy his victory because Julia will take a big cut of his million. An ending like this kind of gives everyone a reason to be happy and satisfied, and several Total Drama seasons have pulled a stunt where a character wins the million but somehow doesn't get the money, or loses it all somehow. So yeah, I suppose there's a possibility Bowie could win and Priya could have an emotional victory. The real ending has Bowie and Priya run up this mountain with some goats, then milk the goats, then drink the goat milk, then race down the mountain in this big ball. Is that a really weird final challenge? Like, thematically, why do we have the final challenge include so much goat? Is it because they're competing to be the greatest of all time? Thank you, thank you. The two of them are flying down the cliff, and you can't tell which ball is which at this point because they threw up. Thank you, Total Drama. Classic. We see a ball cross the finish line, but we can't tell who's inside which ball. I'll play the clip to reveal who wins the season.
And the winner of this season of Total Drama Island and the $1 million prize is... Priya!
So yeah, Priya wins. Honestly, I'm a bit surprised. When I first saw her, I thought it'd be way too obvious for the character who's trained for Total Drama their whole life to actually win the show. I kinda thought they were building up the plot or moral of winning isn't everything, but that's not what this season is about. The plot is more focused on the friendship of Priya and Millie, as well as their insecurities. A question running in my head throughout the episode was, will they make Bowie win because Priya develops and has an emotional victory, or will Priya win to show the fruits of her development? You can really go either way with a show like this, and that's part of why I love this genre, because there's so many decisions the writers can make and how it might have been foreshadowed. One interesting thing they announced at the end of the episode is that the whole cast is coming back for a season 2. I kind of think to myself, what are they gonna possibly do differently? But then I'm also speculating who's gonna have beef right away, like Bowie and Julia, or how far into the competition will a character like Caleb make it this time? I guess it's not too weird to have the same cast return. I mean, right after Total Drama Island, there was Total Drama Action, and for the most part, World Tour had an identical cast to the first season. But I think the additional formula twists those seasons added mixed things up enough for the cast to not become redundant. Those seasons were also 26 episodes though, not 13, so I'm really looking forward to how they write this same cast of characters in a new season, or if they add previous characters from past seasons. Like, it would be really interesting to see how a character like Duncan would interact with this cast of characters, for example. Overall, I thought this was a really fun season. I was surprised by how well done it was, personally. Although a few of the challenges were pretty bad or boring, one thing this season really captured well that I think has been missing recently was the emotions and interpersonal dynamic the characters shared. If you look at the relations of even a random character like Ripper, he had a lot of interactions with everyone, and it's surprisingly complex. He butts heads with Axel about being captain of the ship, he bothers Millie about being a nerd, he used Priya as a human shield and got on the girl's bad sides, he teams up with Z and teaches him how to put the moves on a cassowary. Like, these aren't the deepest, most profound connections, but I can recall a dialogue or interaction he's had with just about every character, which is really nice, and gives the characters an extra dimension of life. I'd love to know what you thought of this season. Maybe you can tell me what you would rate it out of 10, or what your favorite season is or was. And if you thought the season was predictable or not, I'd love to know. And yeah, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. I'm trying to get it to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the summer, so it'd really mean a lot to me. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.